Hello, LinkedIn, and welcome to the Late Lunch Show with me, your host, Audrey Duckworth, and my guest, John Logan. Hi, John. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Audrey. Thank you
Hi.
very much for inviting me today.
You're welcome. You are welcome. So, yes, I'm sitting in again for Jamie. He is off gallivanting. I think I'm going to change the title actually to the Ailsa ESG Takeover, because although I'm taking over the show to tell all our listeners and watchers about what value we can bring to business, I've got a wee environmental slant coming in here and sustainability with what we are going to talk about later on. So John is a well-kent face within waste and within construction, and he's not going to like me saying this, but he has been instrumental in changing the way we think about waste within construction and also in the circular economy as well. So he's the founder and also developer of Construction Waste Portal, and then also our paths crossed through PAS 402, which is an elite waste data standard. And it was quite funny because the company I used to work for at Bin Eco Park were one of the first in Scotland to adopt a PAS 402 standard. And John, you came up to Perthshire so that you could help present the certificate, which was brilliant. You know, it's really good for promoting PAS 402 out to everyone. And, you know, it's good for the company to get the photos, apart from the fact that John is 6 foot tall. Alan McGregor, Guy McGregor, and Brian Harkins, they're all 6 foot tall as well. And then there was me at 5 foot tall. So it was like there was a wee girl in the picture, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure there's been plenty of times you've given my foot up, Audrey. So I give you a chance to get that back.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into that chat and hearing all about the two Construction Waste Portal and the PAS 402 standard, we need to do our shout out to the fantastic studio and Bold Mango Media. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for helping us again today. He's been really busy this week. I know that the guys were delivering marketing seminars with Ayrshire Chamber of Commerce, which was greatly received, helping businesses out as well. So I really appreciate it, given that you've had such a busy week. That's fantastic. And then I would suggest if anybody's looking for marketing really, or any sort of media content, that they're one of the premier ones in Ayrshire to come to. And speaking of premier, our other sponsor here is Grow. So John, everybody loves the bit with the cake. So what have you got today? If you want to hold that up to the camera.
Today, Audrey, I've got an Empire biscuit.
Oh, brilliant.
But it's much more than an Empire biscuit. This is a brownie points Empire biscuit. And I'll probably spend those brownie points this weekend, so I'll leave it at that.
Oh, yes, very good. I think your wife may well be very happy with that. And a wee coffee as well.
Yeah, just a standard coffee to keep the sharpness.
Fantastic. For myself, I have got a lovely honeymoon slice. Jamie often has these, and I thought that looked pretty good today. And then my usual healthy choice of a smoothie with spinach and apple and spirulina and all these great things. So I've been quite busy already this morning, so that's going to keep me going. So that's brilliant. Thanks again for coming along, John. So if you'd like to let me know a little bit about your background and where Construction Waste Portal came from, that would be great.
Well, I've had a very diverse background, to be honest with you, Audrey. I started off as an environmental chemist in a laboratory at the Clyde River Purification Board, which gave me a real grounding in terms of environmental chemistry, water samples, sewage samples, that kind of thing. And then I went into the inspectorate at the River Board, which was one of the precursors to the Scottish Environment Agency. So I spent 10 years at the agency in a number of roles, including regulatory enforcement, which was great. You know, a lot of exposure to some really great people, great projects. And then I left the agency and moved into consultancy and a bit of environmental testing, laboratory management. And then in 2008, I got a really big break into construction, where the laboratory I was managing at the time was doing the analysis on the samples at Ravenscraig.
Oh, yes.
Balfour Beatty were doing the remediation there. But Balfour Beatty didn't have anyone who could interpret the chemical results.
Okay.
So each month I used to do a report for them, and a lovely guy called Henry Sharp, who was the chief materials engineer, asked me if I wanted to be environmental manager on the M74 project.
Wow.
So that was just a fantastic project. You'll never have I know the Herald HS2, etc., but there'll never be another infrastructure project in the UK like the M74. And for me personally, it brought every role that I had ever done into one job, one project. And I'm still proud to say there's a number of people that are close personal friends that I met on that project. And then from there I moved to Sir Robert McAlpine and various other roles, McLaughlin and Harvey. And back in 2018, I'd always been perplexed by the fact that waste in construction was always just seen as a sort of an inevitable casualty.
That's right.
Of how projects were managed, and as long as it was costed properly, then everything was okay.
It's the last thing they always think about, isn't it?
Yeah. But when it goes wrong commercially, that's when they start to take an interest in it. Mm-hmm. And there was a couple of projects I was involved in which were commercial car crashes on waste. So it got me thinking that because we live in such a data intensive industry and society in general, that there must be a way of taking historic project data and using that to come up with some kind of forecasting model that would give people a better chance of working out how much waste a project should produce. Mm-hmm. So I started discussing the idea with a few friends and colleagues in the industry, and all of a sudden they were sending me through spreadsheets full of data.
Lucky you.
So we started, the idea gripped me. And it completely took over my life for about 2 years. It became an obsession. And I worked with Scottish Enterprise, and I worked with some great people at City of Glasgow College, Douglas Morris and Linus Reinenbach, who was a great guy. Big Linus should win a prize for having the best name ever. But he was one of the first people that helped me with the data science on the data. So we built it up, and then back in 2020 we launched the portal. About a week before we went into the fridge because of COVID.
Oh, yeah.
But during the period where everybody was away from work, we developed it further to allow companies to look at sourcing recycled aggregates and that kind of thing. So it started off primarily as a commercial tool to help buyers and estimators get a better handle on quantities and types of waste, but also create a live marketplace environment where waste management companies could promote their service capabilities and their commercial rates, and that packaged up into a commercial value that estimators and buyers could then defend at tender stage to clients and try and give a bit more certainty while promoting circularity and waste minimisation.
And so often that's the case. I mean, I find myself saying that a lot of the time in the net zero accelerators that we run. But the point is that when you're doing the right thing for business, you're doing the right thing for sustainability as well. And, so that initially was commercial, that you were thinking about, how could we make this better? But it's had that extra benefit, if you like, of pushing the circular
It's
economy.
the same in any aspect of it, really, Audrey. When you look at the commerciality of waste, the resource management sector is a huge industry in its own right, but it's only when you introduce the commercial or the procurement element of it that people want to think about managing change and facilitating change.
That's right.
And you can have the best intentions in the world, but if you're not talking to the people that can influence and make those decisions to actually facilitate the change, then really, you're kind of treading water a bit.
Yeah.
And that's why, Scape as an organisation, which is the organisation I work for now, Scape, acquired Construction Waste Portal back in 2020. So I moved to them. And they're so forward thinking in what they're trying to do with procurement. It's a public sector procurement authority. Mm-hmm. And because it is at the heart of public sector, the surpluses that the organisation generates go back into public sector services. So it's almost like, driving the sustainability agenda and the public sector agenda from within. But they're so forward thinking that, when we looked at how we could improve sustainability, we thought, well, we do a lot of great stuff at the moment, but it doesn't seem to be driving the changes that everybody needs. So I took on a new role in April of this year, and we kind of hit the reset button and took a fresh perspective on the things that we do well and to be honest, things that we didn't do so well. So we've introduced a new set of environmental standards, which went live on the 1st of November this year. And one of the real game changers that we've put in place is that we are now mandating the use of PAS 402 as a waste management performance standard on all of our projects. So no matter where you are in the UK, if you're a waste management company that services one of our projects through our supply chain, whether it's Balfour Beatty, Morgan Sindall, Kia, any of our framework partners, you now either need to have Pass 402 or be working towards achieving it within 6 months, or else you won't be able to work on one of our projects. And that's not supposition. That's not ambition. That's a statement of fact.
It is, that's right. And I think it's so important. My own personal experience of PAS 402 has been brilliant. I mean, I am always telling people that I think it is the only way that you can actually put your hand on your heart and say, I know exactly what waste I'm generating, what's happening to it, where it's going, and what my diversion rate is from landfill. And for businesses out there, we are driving, as a nation, we are driving ourselves towards our 2045 climate targets, which are really ambitious, but a big part of that has got to be how we deal with our waste and resources, what we're thinking about in terms of that diversion away from landfill, and you need the data. You can't make any change or understand what we need to do in terms of policy in Scotland, or even drive business investment unless you know what you're doing. And with PAS 402 specifically, that data is all verified. It's checked by an auditor. I know because I've experienced it when Bin Group went for PAS 402. Somebody's coming out and checking that what you're saying is what you're doing, and it is actually following it all the way through. And hand on heart, Bin are a really great company. They're completely, they're forward thinking in what they're doing. A lot of the companies that I've worked with over the years throughout the waste industry, everybody wants to do the right thing and they're trying to be as compliant as possible. But even at that, I was thinking, our data is pretty good. I don't think there's going to be too much of a problem with this. And I was finding loads of things that just historically we were maybe coding wrongly, or we hadn't quite realised, somebody didn't put it wrong at the beginning and it compounded a problem. And it ended up that we invested quite heavily in software. Which then, that sounds like, oh, well, you've paid for a PAS 402 standard, you've had an audit, you've then invested in software. It just sounds like a lot of money, but that efficiency and the money we saved by doing things in a better way and understanding that waste in it's just far deeper dive, and people that have to do waste data returns, we always are checking that data, making sure that it's correct, and still PAS 402 just helps you with that even further.
Yeah, we've had contractors come to us and say that their supply chain are pushing back, saying, well, if I get this, is it going to win me more work? And I understand that commercial angle and that resistance to look at the investment, but the investment that companies have to make is pretty small in real terms, because they should have the performance there anyway. Yeah. And they should have the data there to back that up. So essentially the 402 process is a validation of what you should be doing anyway. The other challenge we have is people saying, well, it's just another badge on the wall. But, I've got 14,001 and I've got 9,001. 402 is a cut above 14,001. 14,001 is it's an admirable standard and is an international quality mark. It's essentially a very generic standard. Yeah. Because it encourages you to identify your aspects and impacts the same as you should do in any other management system anyway. But it tells you what form to use and which folder to put it in and which drawer to put it in. 14,001 is equally applicable in a corner shop as it is in a nuclear power station, because as long as you manage the process and your risks, then you can certify the same standard. What we love about PAS 402 is that it's specific to the resource management sector. And it's not just construction waste, it can be plastic recycling, cardboard, it can be any form of waste. So I'm not sitting here advocating PAS 402 purely from a construction arena point of view, although that's our main domain. This is a certification, a performance standard that the whole resource management sector should be adopting. And in Scotland in particular, you mentioned Bin, who were the pioneers of the standard in Scotland. There is only one other company in Scotland who have it, and that's WRC in Glasgow. Shout
out to Colin and Amanda and all the guys at WRC.
So what I struggle to find sometimes is, with something that's as cutting edge and as this, when there's a technological cutting edge comes into the resource management sector, everybody wants to buy into it because it makes things more efficient and more cost effective and ultimately more profitable. 402 will ultimately make you more profitable, because if you don't have it, in 2 or 3 years' time, you won't be able to bid
No, that's
to get on frameworks, to get on tenders.
Yeah.
It's something that, it's a fundamental change that the industry is going to have to grasp now, because it's not going away. We've mandated it. It's now, I know mandate is a fairly strong word, but for so often in construction, the carrot and stick approach has never really worked. The balance has never really been there. So really all we've done is take away the carrot. And we are now saying, if you want to work with Scape, you've got to be committed to the same levels of best practice as we have. You've also got to be committed to the same levels of integrity, not just in terms of performance, but in terms of data quality, because we use that data quality to then forecast what projects should produce, but more importantly to increase the accuracy and the data strength behind Construction Waste Portal.
Yeah.
So the better quality data going in, the more accurate and the better quality forecasts that coming out. And we have ambitions to use the data set to start influencing policies on waste, both at local, national and devolved government level. And we can't do that if we make it an optional extra.
Correct.
So it has to be a fundamental
right.
part of business as usual.
It needs to be changed, and this is what you see so often. I mean, you and I have talked about it many times, but industry and business actually are the ones that are driving that change at a grassroots level, and it needs to come from there. The innovation comes from there. The legislation's great because it's obviously giving you that sort of framework to work around, but often you see that it's the businesses that drive that change, and we need to all be better and be more efficient as well. So it's, you're getting that value in your business, you're able to be more resilient in the future economy, you're finding out that actually I could be saving money in all the streams that I'm wasting. The biggest one for me, especially with Construction Waste Portal, was something where, I didn't even realise that when they were quoting for jobs, they just sort of, I'll have like so many IBCs of this and so many pallets of that. And there was no actual sort of theory behind that. And that Construction Waste Portal's completely changed that now. But the wastage was incredible. And you just think that's really obvious, but it's until you actually sit down, think about how you can make a change, drive that change through the industry, and then you see everybody starting to follow suit.
I mean, you look at the loss of profitability from projects on waste and through the development process of the portal. I did some research on actually what the impact was. The construction industry in the UK produces in excess of 60 million tonnes a year. Wow. In terms of materials, and that's not soils and demo, that's just construction materials.
My goodness.
And they've done that for over a decade. So the old having waste to landfill commitments and all that kind of thing that were valid for about 2 weeks before they lost their attraction. Things have moved on considerably since then. I mean, when you put that into perspective, 60 million tonnes is the equivalent of the weight of the population of Europe.
Oh my goodness.
750 million people. So when you put it into that personal kind of level, but from a commercial point of view, the industry loses £1.4 billion a year in profits on overspend on waste or wasted materials. Now, construction is the third largest industry in the UK to adopt digital skills. So we talk about BIM modelling and all of the other stuff that we use, the clever stuff in construction now. Imagine if we were able to even save half of that lost profit.
I know.
And invest it in apprenticeships and technical skills and practical skills and digital technologies. You wouldn't need to be continually worrying about, will we operate at thin margins to keep our head above water? Well, look at the areas of cost control that you can manage. Mm-hmm. Don't waste as much materials as we do on a routine basis. Have realistic construction programmes that allow joiners to measure twice and cut once, mm-hmm. and put it up properly and build the quality into the project right from the get-go. A result is primarily a result of the financial crash and also COVID. That everybody wants a £50 million building built for £40 million, yeah. And contractors will cut each other's throats to go and win that. And we saw what happened with ISG and Carillion, as a consequence of that. Yeah. So we need to be smarter in our thinking as an industry and the macro scale, but on the mini scales that you can control. You think about how you're going to build a building when you're tendering for it. Think about how you're going to produce waste. Think about why you're going to produce waste and how you're going to manage how you're going to produce waste. That's right. So bring your waste management partners in early. Get them to help you set the project up. build that relationship. My ambition for Construction Waste Portal in 5 years' time is that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because
You've
companies
done yourself out of business.
yeah, because I want construction companies to establish really good relationships with quality people who are in the resource management sector, who have the technical capabilities, who know what they're doing, who have passed 402, which validates all of that. And we make industry better.
Yeah.
You know, that's what has to happen. So really all we're trying to do is start a campaign for change.
Yes,
really through these mandates. I'm not sure if people read, but there's a really great book called Oversubscribed,
Okay.
by a guy called Daniel Priestley. And I'll paraphrase a bit here, but the subject matter is pretty much the same. He talks about, you know, every time the world changes, it's because of a campaign. So, you know, civil rights movement started off as a campaign for change. Suffragette movement started off as a campaign for change. And while we're not suggesting that, you know, mandating past 402 is going to be of such a magnitude of impact as that, it's already started conversations.
Yeah.
And the more that you warm people up to an idea, the more people get behind the idea. And you build a critical mass, and then there comes a tipping point and industry changes.
Yes.
So instead of past 402 becoming, you know, the shiny bauble that we always speak about on the Christmas tree, it becomes standard practice. So that, you know, when you're sending in your insurance documentation for bids, there's my 402 certification.
Yeah.
It's in the public domain. We want that change in behaviour to facilitate. And that's where the power of procurement comes in. So that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to be, you know, overzealous and basically being dictatorial here. But there comes a point in time where you need to grab a hold of an issue and shake it to a degree where you can make a roots level change. And that's what we're starting to do now. We want to bring people into having the same conversation, because years gone by, construction industry and the waste sector were not adversarial, but there was a disconnect between them.
Definitely.
And what we're trying to do now is make those bridges easier to cross, so that when it comes to resource management and recyclability, circular economy, the mechanisms are there and the relationships are there to be able to drive the changes that we all want to see.
And you see those changes happening already. I mean, I have noticed certainly in the last 10 years, I would say, far more in terms of construction, environmental managers coming to waste companies, resource management, and saying, well, what exactly are your figures? Can I see the returns? Do I understand this data? And that's not something we were ever asked for before. And again, I think that's that whole piece with 402. We know that SEPA and the other nations are pulling together the mandatory waste data tracking. That's starting at an industry level with the waste companies within 2027, and it's a phased approach. But that's going to be the whole of the country within not too short a time. And so they need to know what's going on with their waste, and that's not just for construction and waste companies. That's for every business that produces and deals with waste. And then it might even be, you know, as I know it sounds a bit silly, but people forget, if I'm doing a job and then I'm taking that stuff in my van to the depot or whatever, you're a waste carrier, and so you need to understand about that waste and understand what you're producing and look at it in greater detail. And then that also comes back for the piece that I do in my day-to-day job at Ailsa ESG with the net zero accelerators, because we are pulling together data, not just your energy use and your water use, but it's your waste as well, pulling all that data together. And the more data you have, the more informed you are, and that's the way that we get that change. As you say, the only way you can influence what happens in the future and understand the investment that's going to come is by having the data to understand the peaks, the troughs, what we're doing well, what we're doing badly. You know, there's been a lot of talk in the news recently with the changes that have come about with recycling rates, the landfill ban, or the biodegradable municipal waste ban was put back. So there's lots of changes that have had to be put on hold, so to speak, because we haven't had the right infrastructure or the right data or be ready for that. And so I think this is only going to help. I mean, past 402, better data, what's not to like about that?
I think another key area, when you mentioned investment there, Audrey, and the one area where I think past 402 will have a huge impact is in the recycled aggregates
sector.
Absolutely. You know, those guys really suffer because of a poor perception of
lack of
recycled
understanding.
aggregate. And that's exactly what it is. People don't know really what they're talking about, particularly clients, contractors think that there's an inferiority surrounding recycled aggregates compared to the virgin equivalents. Where the conversation's starting to go is that there's a new resource framework that's being worked on with the Environment Agency, and it's designed to replace the existing RAP quality protocol. They could actually probably change the initial letter on the
Yes, I think
on
so.
the protocol, because it's so widely abused now that it completely undermines the sector. And you've got some fantastic companies out there that produce, great product. So what's probably going to happen now is that 402 will become essentially UCAS accredited third-party certification scheme for the production of recycled aggregates. And it essentially will prove end-of-waste criteria being met, as well as the quality specifications being met. And it probably will go along the lines of, if you don't have Pass 402, you won't be able to sell your product.
Yeah.
That's where I view it going, because the EA from the get-go that, they were pulling the ball because of the substandard and often harmful nature of some materials that were being passed off as being recycled aggregates.
Yeah.
And from a commercial point of view, these guys have invested millions and millions of pounds in wash plants, and it's often very difficult to get the quantity of feedstock that they need to even wash their face commercially. So we view that Pass 402 will completely change the landscape on that, because it will take the recycled aggregate production sector to a level where they can compete justifiably, commercially and environmentally with the quarries. And I think there's a real opportunity there. We've already started talking to a couple of trade associations down south who have been involved in the funding of the resource framework discussions with the Environment Agency. And it's very, very close. So if it's not late spring next year, it will be early summer. So I would encourage anyone who's in the recycled aggregates arena who wants to, start a conversation about how Pass 402 can help them as well to, get in touch.
It's always frustrated me from a point of view of, we're all trying to do our best with our resources. And of course, we understand that there are some aggregates, for example, landscaping, where you want to have that as near as, although I was going to say, raw material, kind of pretty slate or whatever it may be, but actually a lot of the recycled stuff is just as nice. And we had Jim Brown on recently on the show, and he was showing us his glass glow, which was made out aggregate glass made from the television screen. So that was brilliant. So there are loads of good examples of that, but I do still understand when somebody wants a specific stone from a quarry, and I get that. But in terms of using it for pipe bedding or using aggregates for roads or for any type of construction that you're not really going to be seeing, I don't understand what the issue is.
They're all tested to the same geotechnical specifications anyway, Audrey. So in performance terms, there is no difference between a quarried stone and a recycled stone if it's produced to the right degree. We talked about economies of scale earlier. Now there's 1 million tonnes a day of aggregate used in the UK construction industry.
Is that how much it is a day?
And just under 20% of it is recycled.
I have to remember that.
So that should be much higher than 20%. Some of it's down to the commercial element. Some of it is down primarily to designers who have a fear factor that their professional indemnity will take a hit if they specify a substandard material. Look at the industry. Instead of sitting in a design office, go out and visit a wash plant, go and see a production process, have a look at there's a number of companies out there who have open days and will openly invite you to go and see it.
Yeah.
So go and have a look at the material, understand that it's not just, crushed concrete. It's, properly produced, it's washed, it's tested, it meets all of the criteria, and we need to promote recycled aggregates more than we currently do. I know if you're a quarry operator, sitting here saying that, then you maybe not want to listen to what I'm going to say, but you're going to have to diversify your business model.
Resources don't last forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we are successful in the mandate over the next 10 years and driving circularity and better data and better quality recycled products, then if your business model doesn't adapt over time, most businesses fail anyway. Quarries maybe need to look to to have a bit more of a sympathetic ear and maybe partnership models with the recycled aggregates producers, because it's definitely coming.
Oh, absolutely. And there are some I can think of already who are starting to do that wee bit of recycling within their quarry operation as well, because they're understanding, as I say, resources aren't going to last forever. We all know they're finite and we want to be doing the right thing. And the business model has to change. We have to think differently. And that's what's so great about both the portal and PAS 402. It's changing mindset and actually getting people to think about what they're doing and understand that waste is not sustainable forever. We have to be reducing it. We have to make a change. We have to think about things differently and get that change from waste to resource. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we're very much looking to work in partnership. We want to work in partnership with the resource management companies. So, as PAS 402 adapts and amends to what industry needs, so the new version of it launched this year, which includes things for climate change adaptation and the facility for recycled aggregates. But if industry changes again, then we'll adapt the standard again. Similarly with, we want to work with our contractors and we want to evolve our environmental standards to fit best what industry needs. I would like our standards to become industry standards rather than just scape standards. But the one thing I will say, to recap on it, is that this isn't going to go away.
No.
Not just, me as an individual, people who know me as a person know that when I get something in my mind, I don't let it go. I've been given a platform now within my role at Scape where they want to drive change. We want to be seen as best in class. And by doing that, we want to pull up industry standards. So the time for apathy or thinking that, we've got a bit of time here before things we need to consider doing stuff. No, you need to come and talk to us now, because it's coming over the hill, and it's coming over the hill quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really interesting. I think for me, it always has been that part of education and understanding your own business as well. So for other businesses that are perhaps not within construction and waste, they need to be thinking, what are their contractors doing? Are they best practice too? Asking to see that. Part of tenders as well, I find that you can be using a PAS 402 report for tenders, which helps you to get work. More and more often we're seeing that as well with the cohort members, that they're actually winning tenders based on the fact that they're not just ticking a box about sustainability and answering those 5 questions on the environmental or quality section. They know what they're doing. They understand it in their business. They've got that level of understanding that they are really walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And that's what PAS 402 allows you to do as well, because you have gone into the minutiae of that data. You understand every single movement that's going on. It's not really just a mass balance. It's looking at your entire process and making sure that you have got that clarity, that you know exactly where that material is going and what's happening with it.
Yeah, even in the procurement context that you mentioned there, Audrey, we had, even before we introduced the mandate, in the past year, we've had 3 contractors who we've been talking to about various things, including PAS 402, have actually changed their own procurement requirements, their own tender requirements to have, are you working towards PAS 402, or do you have it within their own question set, irrespective of what we did?
Yeah.
So there are companies out there who recognise it as best practice and changing industry, who are implementing it themselves. We've just had to make sure that we're trying to create as much of a level playing field as we can, but also drive standards as best we can. There's public sector gets a lot of criticism, and quite rightly sometimes, but within the arenas that we can control and influence, particularly from the environmental management and sustainability management point of view, we're determined that we are going to completely change the construction industry in terms of what it does, but also change the resource management sector. And the companies who have embraced PAS 402 will be the companies who form the nucleus of driving that change. But for anyone who has any doubt about the benefits of PAS 402, talk to companies that have been through the certification, through the process. Talk to people who know about the process, and I'm not saying it's easy, but you'll find that your business will improve, your processes will improve, and you'll become more efficient and more profitable by being more efficient, rather than thinking that I've got to have this badge on the wall to win work. This is more than a badge. It's not a badge of honour. It's essentially a blue chip endorsement of how your business should be operating anyway. Mm-hmm. So embrace it. Don't be scared of it. Go and investigate it. You can download the standard free of charge from the BSI
right.
website. It's no longer a chargeable item. Look at the standard. Check how your business is prepared for it before you start to inquire about it. But don't let it go. You use it as an indicator that you want to be a bit more curious about it, because you're going to have to be.
Oh, exciting times ahead. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I'm so buzzing for it, actually, because I've always advocated Passport O2. I think it is the right thing to do. I always have believed in it. And I know from my own experience at BIN and also the guys at WRC that they've really seen massive differences having gone through that and gone through the process. So what I'll do is I'll put a wee link in the comments section just with the BSI link for Passport O2, so viewers can have a wee look at that. Andrew, if we get any questions in the comments? No, all good. So without further ado, then it just remains for me to say thank you very much for your time, John. It's been great. I just love talking about Passport O2 because I think it's so important, and I hope that was useful for our listeners too. So it won't be me next week. I'm going to be away on my holidays, but Jamie will be back. Thanks again.